What are you doing?
In the years since his introduction into the MCU, Hollywood has taken a Tom Holland like Kevin from The Office on a pot of his world-famous chili. It seems like every day there's news about another new movie trying to get Tom Holland to sign on. Even online, you can't go far without seeing talk about a new Tom Holland dream casting. Here's to hoping for that Atlantis remake, am I right or am I right? This combined with the recent double whammy of new releases starring the web-headed Brit, that it made me wonder if Tom Holland can do what no other Spider-Man actor has been able to do up to this point. Can Tom Holland separate himself from the role of Peter Parker and become a successful leading man outside of Spider-Man while still portraying the character? For this video, I will not be talking about his voiceover work. I am instead strictly discussing his live-action films released post-Spider-Man Far From Home. 3 films that try and showcase the actor in a different light than what we see in the MCU. Devil All the Time, Chaos Walking, and Cher. Instead of talking about them in release order, I will be talking about these movies in the order in which I watched them, which I'll be honest, is a little wonky. So check out the time code for a specific movie. Okay, let's get into it. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so the lady at Supercut stops telling me her son's potato chip review channel is so much more popular than mine. Screw you, little Terry. I don't believe you when you say your palate is more susceptible to sodium than most 12-year-olds. I don't care. I pay taxes. Alright, back to the video. Unlike the other films I'm about to discuss, Chaos Walking is the only one of the 3 with an entire theatrical exclusive release. It also has the distinction of being the highest budgeted movie starring Holland outside of the MCU. Until Uncharted comes out, of course. It was also the first movie he signed up for after Homecoming and was initially shot way back in 2017. Due to very bad test screenings and the busy schedules of its stars Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley, reshoots weren't completed until late 2019. Supposedly, Tom Holland hadn't even seen the film up until right before its release. On paper, this is the closest of the 3 to being like a Spider-Man film. It's based on a YA science fiction novel, so they are technically going for the same audience. This is a very, very weird, very strange film that feels like it could stain an actor's image. This was a movie with multiple directors and writers. At one time, Charlie Kaufman wrote a draft of this movie that was never used. It seems like they never really grasped how to turn this book into a movie. Tom Holland has this inherent likability that shines through even when the material isn't there. Mortal Engines is another dystopian YA movie that failed to attract an audience and has Robert Sheehan as the male lead. I think Sheehan is amazing in The Umbrella Academy. He makes Klaus such a unique and energetic character. I bring this up because in Mortal Engines, he is a complete and utter dud. A real stick in the mud that blends in with the movie and is very much a generic character that could have been played by literally anyone else. Tom Holland's Chaos Walking character, Todd Hewitt, is the exact same kind of character, although his extreme awkwardness is turned up to the 100th degree due to his thoughts being projected at all times. This role would eviscerate most young actors being forced to deal with its ridiculousness. Holland, though, surprisingly, doesn't look like a complete buffoon. Don't get me wrong, his character sucks, and the movie is bad, but his performance isn't. He's definitely giving it his all, and he actually makes the movie very watchable. He stands out in scenes alone with Daisy Ridley. The scenes with the 2 of them together do a great job of showcasing how different the 2 young stars really are. Ridley comes off wooden and confused, like most people would be trying to make sense of this movie. A lot of it comes off as an unintentional comedy, and I, for one, would love to see that test screening cut to see how much worse this really could have been. A lot of what I say next is my opinion and complete speculation. Mostly because of Tom Holland's performance, as well as equally committed performances from the rest of the cast. Chaos Walking has a real shot to become a cult classic bad movie that can stick out amongst a lot of the forgotten films in the dystopian YA film genre that is all but dead at this point. There's a lot more I could talk about this movie, like how the actual idea of the noise doesn't really track or make a lot of sense, or how this film really feels cobbled together, how Mads Mikkelsen tries his all to make his generic villain seem a lot more than what it is on the page, and why Nick Jonas is barely in the movie just because he was going to be set up to be the villain in future sequels. But this is a video about Tom Holland, not a video about Chaos Walking. So I'm moving on.
I'm 23 years old, and sometimes I wonder if life was wasted on me.
If Jarhead and Social Network had a baby, and if Goodfellas and Boogie Nights had a baby, and if those two babies met and fucked, this would be the subpar product of trying to shove all of that together in a 2.5-hour movie.
This is the product of baby fucking.
Smell it.
Okay.
Smell it.
Cherry has the distinction of being the reteaming of Tom Holland with the directors that helped make him a star, Anthony and Joe Russo, the directors of Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. For this wildly different kind of movie, a somewhat biopic about the life of Nico Walker, starting out as a naive college student who joins the army and his journey ultimately leading to becoming a bank-robbing heroin addict. This film is a textbook definition of style over substance. I am a huge fan of the Russo brothers, but everything I love about them as filmmakers are completely absent from this movie. I respect them trying to stray far away from their blockbuster path and casting one of their young stars trying the same thing. I also heard them say in interviews that this was a passion project because they are from Ohio and the story felt close to home for them. As much as I really appreciate that, and I do believe they definitely gave it their all and had a good time making this film, Cherry is more of a showcase of their weaknesses than their strengths. A lot of it comes off like the Russos trying to emulate their favorite filmmakers. All of that considered, I think it is a real testament that Tom Holland is able to come out of this movie mostly unscathed. While this performance won't win any awards, he comes off feeling more real and authentic than anyone else around him. The rest of the cast feels so fake and unlikable, it makes this hard watch even harder to sit through. Cherry breaks the cardinal rule of a near 3-hour crime drama. It doesn't do nearly enough to make these undesirable characters likable or relatable enough that we root for them in spite of their actions. Honestly, this movie could have taken so many notes from Breaking Bad on how to make you enthralled with characters spiraling out of control in the middle of a drug epidemic. While I do think Cherry was trying to be a true springboard for Tom Holland into leading darker films, do for Tom Holland what Fight Club did for Brad Pitt, or what Born on the 4th of July did for Tom Cruise. Unfortunately, it comes off more like when Ashton Kutcher played Steve Jobs, or Leonardo DiCaprio in The Beach. However, just like Chaos Walking, it does not hurt him in the same way it would a lesser actor. Like DiCaprio in The Beach, Holland's likability and untapped potential shine through no matter how weak the material may be. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the similarities that Cherry has to the film Brothers, starring Tobey Maguire. In that film, Tobey also plays a veteran trying to overcome PTSD, but he co-stars with Jake Gyllenhaal and Natalie Portman. And surprisingly, his performance is so strong that it outshines both of them. After watching Cherry, I wasn't really sure if Tom Holland would be able to do the same thing. That was until I watched our last film. A slow burn, Southern Gothic ensemble crime drama set in the post-World War II 1950s about the relationships of several characters. The center of these characters is Arvin, played by Tom Holland. One of the most fascinating parts of this movie to me is that out of the ensemble cast, only 2 are US born. The reason why it fascinates me is how authentic a lot of this movie feels, which is a testament to the performances in this film. This was the first of the 3 films I've covered to be released, but the last I actually watched. I tried watching it when it was first released last fall, but I honestly wasn't in the right mood, and this is definitely the kind of dark, dreary noir that should be watched in the proper mindset. Maybe because it was more of an ensemble and it hinged the least on Holland. Maybe it's because I watched this last and already was taken on 2 wild emotional whirlwinds. Devil All the Time is by far my favorite of the 3 Tom Holland films I've discussed in this video, both in what I think is the best movie, but most importantly, I feel this is the best example of Tom Holland's talent outside of Peter Parker. Its themes of death and religion in the Gothic South felt more like a novel come to life than either of the other films I've talked about previously. Tom Holland's Arvin is so far removed from his character in Cherry and does a better job of portraying someone recovering from a past trauma. Although, maybe that's more evidence that Antonio Campos is better at covering this subject matter than the Russos were with the subject matter of Cherry. Holland's likability is prevalent here, but it is a lot more hidden and subdued, which may have to do with him having less screen time. Although his character is the most redeemable in the movie and the person you relate to the most, surprisingly this was the movie Holland shot right before Cherry, so I actually find it very surprising how much better he was in this darker film. But like I said, that may have to do with the direction as well as the surrounding cast. Tom Holland is definitely at the point in his career where he is elevated by the actors around him, in contrast to a more veteran actor who has the uncanny ability to elevate those around them to another level, at least not yet. Cherry, I think, is the best example of that, because it's a movie that hinges on his performance the most out of the three. It is also the movie with the weakest supporting cast, being mostly made up of actors on the same level as Holland, but not above. Another example is the scenes of Chaos Walking he shares with Mads Mikkelsen compared to his scenes with Daisy Ridley. If you go even further, comparing his gunplay scenes in Cherry to his scene in the church with Robert Pattinson or in the woods with Sebastian Stan in this film, two actors similar to Holland, but both are now seasoned vets at jumping between genres. It may take years for him to reach that level, but if these films show us anything, it is his promising future outside of the Disney-Sony world of cinema. While, of course, he will most likely end this year on a high note with Spider-Man No Way Home, his next release in 2022 is arguably his first real test of his star power, playing Nathan Drake in the first ever Uncharted movie. Unlike all of the fan castings I mentioned earlier, Nathan Drake was not one of those, because the character as he's portrayed in a majority of the games is a much older and more seasoned treasure hunter. This film instead seems like it is going for more of an origin story of the character and his relationship to Sully, portrayed in the movie by a maybe mustache Mark Wahlberg, which is something we have gotten in the later Uncharted games, so there is some precedent for a younger Nathan Drake. Sony hopes this takes Tom Holland well into his 30s and becomes a franchise equal to that of The Wallcrawler. Time will tell if that actually happens, but if it does, there may be a chance his dance card will be full the next few years, so films like the three he just released may be few and far between. Although I didn't like 2 out of the 3 movies, I do think all 3 are worth watching and definitely showcase that Tom Holland has the potential to be a bright star for years to come. Or maybe he won't. What do I know? I'm just some guy who knows how to use Adobe Premiere. Thanks for watching. Check out Let Me Be Critic for more videos like this, like our deep dive into Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, or my 5 ways to make a good Hitman movie. Check those out if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.